Hi, welcome to On Air. I'm Klara Syrewicz. This year brought tough reckonings for Ukraine and its European allies. Today we look at what's changed and what's ahead. You'd need a Kantian level of detachment to review the past year in Ukraine without feeling, what's that word, rage. The most sobering metric of 2025 is the battlefield shift. Ukraine's army is dramatically understaffed and Russia is moving faster. Last month, Russia made its biggest advance in a year, seizing 701 square kilometers out of a total 4,670 since January. And the loss of Pokrovsk has further eroded Ukraine's ability to mount future counterattacks. Still, we should resist Moscow's mantra of inevitable triumph. Military analysts foresee no major Russian breakthrough in the coming months. Ukraine's forces remain strong enough to blunt the advance, and Russia has yet to seize a single major city, and those are unlikely to be given up nicely. Ukraine also disputes Moscow's assertion that all of Pokrovsk has fallen, noting Ukrainian troops still hold the outskirts. Russia has yet to secure those zones before it can move against the northern fortress cities, where trenches, minefields and anti-tank pyramids, known as Dragon's Teeth, await them. If this sounds like a Game of Thrones recap, Z-walkers pressing towards the northern fortress cities behind the fortified wall, well, it fits. And winter has come, with massive Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy grid and a sharp rise in civilian deaths. Relentless attacks on apartment blocks and public spaces have driven Ukrainian civilian casualties past 53,000. Meanwhile, the front is defined by a grotesque asymmetry in each side's willingness to inflict suffering on its own citizens. Russia is now losing an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 soldiers every month in its grinding push to capture all of the Donetsk Oblast, a campaign it has pursued without success for 11 years since the first invasion. Imagine the US or Europe allowing 20,000 people per month being killed or maimed just to seize a single region. And the official cumulative toll of Russian soldiers dead or with life-altering injuries now stands at roughly 1.25 million. In an interview with Anne Applebaum, Scott Galloway remarked that this sheer disregard for human life seems to be Russia's core competence. Ukrainians know that, to Putin, lives are disposable, but money isn't. This year, they've hit back with their own sanction strikes on Russian oil facilities and shadow fleet tankers, empty ones, so no spills. They also scored big with drones hitting Russian military planes deep inside Russia. These attacks really strained Russia's budget, the one place where Putin appears capable of experiencing an emotion similar to pain, or just an emotion. Yet even these victories were eclipsed by a corruption scandal rocking Ukraine's leadership, complicating both peace negotiations and EU accession talks. The aptly named Midas tapes scandal, revealed by Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies, exposed over $100 million allegedly laundered in the energy sector. With it, Russia made its greatest gains in the narrative war, especially in the US and among EU right-wing circles. The paradox, though, is that it highlights the resilience of Ukraine's civil society. NABU and SAPO, created post-2014, are among Ukraine's greatest domestic achievements. In 2023 alone, they recovered around $80 million, much of it then sent to the military. When the law threatened their independence, public outcry and Western pressure restored it. That's why Ukraine keeps improving in Transparency International's corruption index, doing more internally than many other EU hopefuls. Did anyone say Serbia? And guess who's suddenly getting precious about Ukraine's corruption? Forget the easy targets. Imagine a US agency investigating Trump and his circle, with FBI Director Kash Patel leading this. I'm sure he'd look petrified. And honestly, I wouldn't know where to start. Now, let's leap across the pond, because there's no explaining Ukraine's situation without the US angle. From Putin's red carpet to the gang attack on Zelensky, from cutting off intelligence to halting military aid, 2025 has been a harsh reckoning for both Ukraine and Europe. The recently released US national security strategy says it all. Its sharpest words target NATO allies while the Russian threat is brushed off. Cutting direct support for Ukraine is one thing. That was Trump's electoral platform. But seeking maximalist profits from the war is just vile. As the Washington Post delicately puts it, the Trump government has proven to be worse than simply incompetent, but a sickening moral slum of an administration. The US defense sector is reaping decades-high profits, selling steeply priced weapons to Europe and Ukraine, who are largely coerced to purchase in order to avoid punishing tariffs and maintain paper-thin security guarantees. US-based SpaceX, owned by Trump supporter Elon Musk, is cashing in on Starlink, with European countries chipping in to provide its services in Ukraine. Now, the US hints it might also cut support. Although the US currently shares geolocation and observation data at no cost, as it collects it for its own use and receives European equivalents, it could soon wield it as leverage or monetize access. But the crowning absurdity has been the 28-point US peace plan for Ukraine, authored unabridged by Russian officials. The revelation emerged from a leaked chat between two top Kremlin negotiators. The plan's being called a wish list from Vladimir to Santa Claus, transparently outlining major economic deals benefiting Trump, without any attempts to even invoke the fog of greed. It includes US-Russian investments, handing frozen Russian assets to Trump-friendly firms instead of helping Ukraine, and jointly exploiting Arctic minerals. This reflects decades of Kremlin PR, which knows all of Trump's weak spots. Abracadabra, you shall no longer see a collapsing mafia state ruled by an autocrat who's clearly lost it, but a land of bountiful opportunity. Looky here at the old golden candelabra, the pretty women, have some caviar. And you don't drop that carton replica of Fabergé egg when Witkoff and Kushner walk by. After all, back in the 80s, Trump offered to end the Cold War personally, as a side project to building a Trump Tower across from the Kremlin, with the Soviet regime as a business partner. Though the Berlin Wall eventually fell without Trump's communism-shattering tower, I'm sure he will at some point claim a peace prize for stopping the East-West standoff.
Okay. Let me hold. Fantastic. Excellent.
In any case, Trump's idea of dangling a business deal to exact a ceasefire from a man who's killing hundreds of thousands because he fancies himself Peter the Great isn't just immoral, but monumentally stupid. Ironically, though, the most naive approach comes from Russia. Putin signed the Donbas annexation into law and is domestically locked into achieving it. So, in his Dear Santa letter, he essentially requests what his meat grinder strategy can't deliver, but only a geopolitical genie could grant. The aforementioned Donetsk in the strategic Donbas region is heavily fortified. It's where those 20,000 Russian troops are being massacred every month. And what Putin wants is for Trump to give it to him. Honestly, even if he wanted to, Trump couldn't deliver. Ukrainians won't surrender this fortress belt. It's a crucial defense and a potential springboard for Russia into central Ukraine. It's also politically unfeasible. Zelensky couldn't approve it and stay in office. Though Russia proposed a solution to that. Another stipulation in the 28-point plan involved Russia organizing Ukrainian elections, which I won't even comment on that. Considering this, Ukrainians are determined to keep fighting, with or without help. They really have no other choice. As Professor Michael Clark puts it in a Sky News Q&A,
They need to keep fighting, and that's what happens when countries feel that they're under threat of extinction, which is what the Russian threat to Ukraine is. It's genocidally based in the sense the Russians want to erase Ukrainian citizenship and nationality. They want everyone in Ukraine simply to think of themselves as Russians.
Yeah.
And believe me, they'll be very second-class Russians at that if they are absorbed.
The situation is brutally clear. While the US and Russia behave as if Europeans and Ukrainians lack agency, Europeans are now effectively paying for the war. So whether Trump gets frustrated, flunks out, or dictates a solution that exposes Ukraine to further invasion, the war will drag on. The other inescapable conclusion for Europe is that the US now prioritizes the commercial interests of the president's associates over the continent's security. The post-1989 era is over. Everyone instinctively prefers to think of the conflict as distant and hide behind the status quo. But European security has changed, and we're only now starting to face the political reality and sacrifices it demands. Ukraine is Europe's front line. Its continued resistance relies on Europeans acknowledging that their collective safety, political relevance, and economic future must be upheld, potentially in opposition to Washington. So here's my wish to Santa. May Ukraine, aided by Europe, secure a ceasefire, one that makes Trump want to take the credit, perhaps even demand an award. It's fair to say the word ally has taken a beating recently. Political alignment no longer guarantees actual cooperation. In our hyper-polarized world, personal chemistry between leaders suddenly matters more than policy. Doing fun stuff together like Kim Jong-un and Putin's joyride and dog-cuddling tour sends a powerful, if deeply cringy, message. But how much of it is real and how much is pure PR? Some bromances and political friendships are genuine, though. Let's see which ones.
I'm a Democrat. And I love John McCain.
Joe Biden, a lifelong Democrat, and John McCain, a Republican war hero, forged a bond that transcended political battles. This is John McCain's funeral.
But the way I look at it, the way I thought about it, was that I always thought of John as a brother.
Another unexpected bond emerged during the Cold War, when Canada's Pierre Trudeau developed a warm friendship with Fidel Castro. Even as much of the Western world isolated Cuba, Trudeau chose engagement, and Castro returned the loyalty, attending Trudeau's funeral in 2000. Despite sitting on opposite ends of America's political spectrum, George W. Bush and Michelle Obama formed one of the most unexpected modern political friendships. From sharing sweets at official ceremonies to exchanging warm hugs at state events, their bond became a small but charming reminder that politics doesn't have to be a full-contact sport 24/7. Today, one of the world's most surprising political friendships is between US President Donald Trump and Finland's Alexander Stubb. Forged during marathon golf games, the report has given Finland a unique voice in Washington, especially on the war in Ukraine.
But what if Russia and Vladimir Putin attacks Finland? Would you defend Finland?
I would, yes, I would. They're a member of NATO. I would, they're great people.
Though in today's world, the lines between friendship and business often blur, leaving us to fill in the gaps.
There's always room for some unexpected bonding. Just ask Trump and Bubba. Have a great evening, and I'll see you next week.